getting people to realize that, invest in a good mattress, invest in sleep. It's painful, but it's important.
He would say, why aren't organizations like life?
Am I strong enough for the next 10 years? Am I good enough for the next 10 years? Staying grounded in realizing that you're not special just because you were born into this family, I think is really important.
Hi, my name is Jaykumar Hariharan. I'm an executive coach, speaker, and author. Stories That Shift is a series of up-close and intimate conversations with CXOs and practitioners of various disciplines about what makes them tick. Stories are not what we say. Stories are who we are. I have a very special guest on my pod this morning, Matthew Chandy, or Miki, as he prefers to be called, the chairman of Duroflex Industries. Miki, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. In a brief conversation that we've had, one of the first things that really strikes me, and all the other conversations that you've had, is about the importance of sleep. And personally, this is a very, very close area that I'm invested in, because as an executive coach, I work with CXOs and help them function optimally. So almost as a ritual, there are three questions that I ask. How's your sleep? How's your nutrition? What's happening in your workout area? This is like de rigueur. Nice. Every session kind of starts with this. And my reason for getting invested in the importance of sleep was actually a while ago when Arianna Huffington went around the world evangelizing sleep. And I was wondering why. So somebody asked her in an interview, what's your motivation? What happened? She said, well, one day I cut my cheekbone and by hitting it at the edge of the table when I was sleep deprived. And if you're lying in a pool of blood and nobody shot you, should that be what success looks like? And I found it particularly interesting because Arianna at that time was already on her way to becoming a very, very influential woman in media. Which is why I'm really interested in your role as a sleep evangelist in the country. Talk to us about your journey on that.
So I think I must have gone through similar emotions that Arianna expressed. So I think didn't take sleep very seriously for a long time and found that a lot of things were breaking. Relationships were breaking. My back was breaking. Busted my knee a few times.
Wow.
And I think I had my aha moment. I actually read Arianna's book, but gotcha. I didn't get my aha moment after her book. It was actually when I read Matt Walker's book about why we sleep. And he talks about how you just have less empathy when you're sleep deprived, and that you get physical injuries when you're sleep deprived and you work out too hard. And, a lot of things started connecting, and I just figured that I was personally sleep deprived and I needed to sort that out for myself. And having done a lot of work and managed to correct a lot of those things, I just realized that this is magic, and we need to spread the good word about sleep. And so I think one of the most important things I do today is talk about sleep and evangelize the importance of sleep and how important it is. If you're already on a health journey and you're working on your nutrition and you're working on your gym routine and you're working on your personal productivity, sleep is a very, very important part of that journey. People talk about it as being the third pillar. I actually think it's the foundation.
Amazing.
Rather than the pillar of health. So very important to me, and I think very important to anyone who wants to lead a better life and a more productive life.
No, because this is exactly what I used to think as three pillars, one of three pillars. But I was listening to a friend's podcast, a fellow practitioner. His name is Deepak Jayaraman. Deepak was interviewing Matt Dixon, who is a master coach at the Ironman University. And he spoke and he said sleep was pretty much the foundation. And that was also like an interesting segue for me. And I remember Deepak talking about it and all of us having a similar bit of a challenge. And I'll tell you what the challenge is. I have slept less, but I can't miss my workout.
Guilty of that.
Guilty, yeah. So what started happening was we would wake up a little sleep deprived, but hey, I showed up for my workout. And not ideal, right?
Yeah, I think, willpower only gets you so far. So you manage that for a few days and a few weeks. But if you want to do this as a lifestyle, it only gets you so far. Like, so today, Friday nights, we tend to stay up a little later than usual. So, my workout was at 9 o'clock this morning, not at 6:30 as it normally is. So, I think any nutrition routine or a fitness routine, if you want to keep it going for many, many years or make it a real lifestyle habit, you have to be getting enough sleep and turn up with enough energy to work out or to stick to your diets as well. If you've not slept well, you tend to release all the wrong hormones. So your junk food cravings increase and your feeling of being full decreases. So actually those cravings for that Big Mac or for that KFC or Vada Pav or whatever it is increases a lot when you're sleep deprived. So I think we're kidding ourselves if we think willpower is enough. Willpower is important, but it's not enough. We have to also listen to the way our body works, and a lot of that beautiful stuff happens when we sleep and sleep enough and sleep really well.
Now, interesting you speak about willpower, because there is a psychologist who wrote about willpower called Baumeister, and a seminal book. And I was really interested in that book because I wanted to figure out how David Blaine does what David Blaine does. And this is not about magic and all that, but all his high super endurance kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Standing on top of a pillar for 40 days or fasting for 40 days or underwater for 17 minutes and, jazz like that. And realize that willpower is an exhaustible resource. It's not inexhaustible. And if you can be more methodical about it and get some structure into the madness, that will only help. That will only aid. Which is why it resonates really well with me when you said willpower can only get you so far. I think that makes a lot of sense.
My psychologist tells me the same thing. Miki, very often you're kind of running on willpower, and willpower will run out.
Yeah.
Listen to your body a little more. Listen
nice.
to everything a little more. Yeah.
Very nice. What's interesting about this conversation, even as of now, is I believe like I'm talking to a fellow practitioner more than the chairman of an organization. And I think that bodes well for our conversation. All right. Getting down to business, it's very romantic to talk about the hero's journey, the way Duroflex started and stuff like that. But I'm more interested in what has been your wins in the last 6 months. What has happened? What has gone really well for you personally, professionally?
I think personally, we talked a lot about the health journey. I think the last 1 year, my health hasn't been as great as it could have been. So, all those great rituals and practices did slip a lot in the last 1 year. So I think the personal win for me has been maybe getting it all back on course.
Lovely.
Sleep, fitness, and diet. So I think all three. So that's probably my personal success. I think from a business point of view, it's been a really interesting 12 months. So the COVID years were some of our best years. We doubled our business in 2 years. And I think the last 12 months was kind of getting used to being a much larger business, much more complex business. It comes with a lot of challenges. And since you're into, adventure sports, it's kind of like getting used to this high altitude. And the team, I think myself, but the team, even the organization was not used to being a larger, more complex business. And of course, the external environment is extremely volatile with kind of COVID and then war and then inflation, and yet India seems to be the one bright spark in the universe. So I think it's been a challenging 12 months, and I think the success I would like to celebrate is us having acknowledged that, we are a different beast, and what we need to succeed for the next 10 years is very different from what got us here. It took us a while to realize that, but I think now we all understand it. We all understand that we have some weaknesses that are not going to serve us well for the next 10 years. I think a lot of honesty has come back in the sense that, am I strong enough for the next 10 years? Am I good enough for the next 10 years? Do we need to strengthen the team in various places? So it took us a while, honestly. It took us a while, and but I think we're on that path again. We've made that pivot, and the next 10 years, I think, looks even more exciting than the last 10 years.
Amazing.
But I think in between, we had to kind of stop and pause and really reflect and ask some hard questions of ourselves.
Nice.
But we've done it.
Amazing. The idea as an outsider, as not even as an industry outsider, but generally as a lay consumer. So Duroflex seemed to be a little old worldly in that sense.
Yeah.
And your foray into D2C and your ability to build an omni-channel kind of a distribution network.
Yeah.
It really helped, didn't it?
Oh, for sure. I think it was a bold decision to go into D2C and to try to convert a 50-year-old business into a young startup as well. So I'm proud of the fact that we are a traditional business with the heart of a startup, and that we've successfully managed to create startups within this traditional business. It's not something which is easy to do. So it's, the cultural differences between D2C and B2C or even B2B, and we have all three, are very different. So we have all the three kind of cultures within the same organization. There's always a bit of friction between the three, but it's become good, healthy friction. Very good internal healthy competition to serving the customers better. So I think if we didn't do D2C, we would not be in touch with New India. I think New India is different. Younger customers are different. The expectations are different from product, from communication, from the entire experience. So starting Sleepyhead was one of the best decisions.
I was just about to, yeah.
One of the best decisions we made. Something we're really, really proud of. And the fact that Sleepyhead is now integrating really well into the Duroflex ecosystem, and Duroflex learns from Sleepyhead and Sleepyhead learns from Duroflex. And it's one of the best things we did.
Amazing.
Not many can do it, I think.
Very good. Very good.
What you find now is traditional businesses have realized that D2C is important, but they go about kind of buying out a D2C business or a D2C brand.
Seems like an easier win in that sense, right? But maybe not sustainable.
Maybe. But I think if you buy a D2C business, you now have to learn from that and integrate it well. So you still have the hard work of
100%.
But I think we created it from scratch,
Amazing.
which was pretty awesome, and proud of our team who pulled that off.
Lovely. We can talk numbers if you're comfortable.
Sure.
So gunning for a 2,000 crore mark by the year 25. Is it on its path, or you're not quite sure, or has the goalpost shifted? Any thoughts?
Maybe 26.
Got it.
I think 25 looks a bit ambitious, bit of a stretch.
Sure.
But 26, on path.
Nice, yeah.
But I think that's the way business unfolds.
100%.
Well. Largely, if you're largely on path and in direction, that's good enough. And I think very often good enough is great.
I can't even. Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember there was Ricardo Semler, who was the CEO of a company called Semco in Brazil, and he would say, "Why aren't organizations like life? why do we assume that organizations have to grow at a clip 25, 25, 25, 25, 25? He's saying, tell me any organization, I'll draw their growth or whatever for the next 5 years. You'll grow by 20, you'll drop by 10, you'll grow by 15, you'll grow.
Yeah. That's been our journey.
Yeah, so it's
but yeah, over a 10-year period, it's 25 averaged out, and that's a great average.
Gotcha.
It's a great average and great compounding to have. But yeah, no one is as consistent as you'd like to think.
Absolutely. And especially an organization, considering that there are so many things in this too, right? And it's constantly in a state of flux. It's really hard. It's the variables that are there at play is like quite interesting.
So I think the 2000 will happen. What keeps me even more excited is to think the next 10 years and like, can we go from 1 to 10 again? I think lots of great industries have been created by people who thought 1 to 10. So think in multiples of 10 rather than 10%, and I think that's possible. We found that thinking within the organization. It wasn't me actually. It was some of my colleagues who said, it's great we've done 10 times from where we started, but can we think 10 times again? And
amazing.
I was like, really? It took me a while to digest, and then and I was like, yeah, of course we can. So we look at some amazing companies within India itself, companies which always thought 10 times bigger, 10 times better. So we call them the game changers. And
lovely.
This word game changers is kind of everywhere in our walls and in our hearts and minds. But you look at the Asian Paints, the Pidlights, more recently in the D2C world, the boats, the lens carts, amazing companies always thought 10 times bigger, better, harder, better, faster, stronger, and created a category which didn't exist in its form back then. And I think that's what we want to be. So I think we can. So I think the next 10x is what keeps me really excited. The 2000 will happen. It'll happen.
So allow me the liberty of lobbing a hard one at you. How important is the purchase of a mattress in at homes as of now? What is the as is case scenario right now? What's the amount of thinking time that goes into it?
I would divide in India. I think in India I would divide India into many different segments. There are people, I think, like you and me, who have maybe through some hard learnings realized that sleep is really important. And I think for you and me it is important, and we spend a good amount of time to choose the right mattress, and to select a mattress which is good for your back and keeps you cool and suits you and suits your partner as well, or so I think, but we are a very small
100%.
we're a very small, almost insignificant
Absolutely.
part of India, but in a way we lead the thinking, and we feel that as health becomes more important, and there is a trend, there is a trend of people going to the gym, there is a trend of people signing up for a nutrition program, so we are riding that trend, and we think the next 20% of people who would pay attention to choosing a mattress well will come from that segment. And the rest of the 60-70% will take some time, but we have time.
Because the interesting thing is the headroom for growth is just crazy in this category for branded players, right?
Yeah, but I think it's also up to us as a brand and us as an industry to create a lot of excitement around sleep and around health and all the technology which goes into making a mattress. It's not a dumb product. There was a time when footwear was boring. There was a time when earphones were boring. There was a time when spectacles were boring.
Nice.
And so those give us inspiration. So I think sleep will be sexy soon, and mattresses will stop being boring and under the cover. But I think it's up to us to do that, do the hard work of getting India excited about sleep.
It's great. It's
But
wonderful.
it's damn hard.
No, it is.
I think our competition is alcohol, is
No, I'll
caffeine,
I'll tell you a
Netflix.
very huge company that's a competitor. But anyway, you please tell me, what are the enemies? Alcohol.
Yeah, so highly addictive, fun stuff. So
Sure, of course,
alcohol, caffeine, late night binge eating, late night binge Netflixing. Is that a word? If that's a word. What else? Well, the big tech companies who want to keep you glued to your phones, and so that's the competition. So
no, because I think
big competition.
Very presciently, Reed Hastings told about 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 10 or 8 years ago, we're going to go to war with sleep.
Yeah.
That was the big catchment area that they're going to run after.
Yeah, they're winning and losing.
They're winning, yeah.
And losing. So I think sleep is becoming important to many. When we started out 5 years, 6 years ago, talking about sleep, it felt like we were, lone rangers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ever since Matt Walker published his book and did his TED Talks, and then, people like Andrew Huberman, and, I think podcasts are now just a lot about sleep. So the conversation is getting the required amplitude that it requires. So Netflix is, there's a place for Netflix. There's a place for entertainment. It's not like we need to be absolute angels every day. We need our moments of Netflix and chill, and we need to enjoy a drink, and we need to enjoy going out with friends. I'm going to party tonight, and I have no guilt about that. But once in a while, but I think both can win.
Oh, I think there's a definite place for all the stuff to coexist peacefully, and for us still to maintain a modicum of great health, right? I think that's really important, amazing. What are some of the innovations that you'd like to talk about? Just blow my mind away.
Yeah, I think lots of stuff. So material science is improving by leaps and bounds. I think it went through a period when it was stagnant for a while, but I think material science has improved a lot. So,
is that a global thing, or is India also?
Like with many innovation, India doesn't always lead. India follows.
Yeah.
So I don't think it started here.
Sure.
But we learn very quickly. I think Indians learn to watch what's happening and pick up very quickly. So material science is now getting really smart.
Fascinating.
So, the comfort materials now can dynamically adjust to the body. So it's able to learn what type of comfort you like and adjust during the night. So polyurethane foam, which is actually a very versatile dynamic material, can adjust to what is best for you. And it can now understand that, Jay is in a period of deep sleep, and let's try and keep him there a little longer. So it can get a little softer and a little cooler and keep you in deep sleep longer. So people are really working on hacking sleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think temperature is a really important one. So we sleep best at relatively cool temperatures. In India, that's probably between 19 to 22 degrees. So if we can keep somebody at this optimum temperature, you're likely to stay in quality sleep for much, much longer. So temperature control is creeping in. We've just launched something which we're very proud of. It's called Pneuma. It has a technology based on air and electronics. So we've embedded this into the mattress, and you can adjust the mattress to suit yourself, and as you go through various life stages as well. So today you might like it a little softer because you worked out a little harder, and maybe tomorrow you want it a little firmer because you've been traveling quite a bit, and maybe you like it at a 80% firmness, but your wife, who might be a little lighter and likes it a little more plush and soft, would like it at 60%, and you can adjust both sides dynamically. and you can adjust the temperatures dynamically. I'm sure we all experienced.
I was just about to tell you that
guys tend to be it little cooler, and women like it a little warmer, and you can do all of that amazing stuff. So I think innovation is hitting our industry, and it's fun for us to be a part of this. It's a little expensive at the moment, so it is only for people who can afford it, or people who believe it's worth affording. But I think, as with everything, innovation will diffuse and will bring the cost down, and we'll be able to take this to more people.
Miki, I think we can talk about sleep for a very long time, and we will definitely circle back. But I'm cognizant of the fact that you're leading a business, and you've been at the helm of affairs for some time now. What are some of the stories that you can take us through, the Duroflex story, the good and the stuff that you've learned from?
So many. You want some of the exciting ones, or the
good stuff? Like, it could be employee stories, it could be stakeholder stories, it could be innovation stories. Just a Q&A, Mustafa does a fantastic job of plugging ID and saying, we toiled 2 years and making the perfect hole in the vada. And I think the story is fairly fascinating.
It was. It was. I've heard that.
So feel free, take us on that journey through stories.
Yeah, I can tell you one interesting story which we inherited, actually. So it's not something that we did ourselves. In our previous generation, for example, we had reached a stage where we were struggling to expand and to grow and to build the systems required with expansion and growth. We used to do a lot of the distribution ourselves. So we had warehouses and depots and teams, and I think we went through a lot of the challenges. This is a long time back.
Sure.
When technology was not so strong and systems processes were not so strong. And, we always had inventory mismatches, you had collection mismatches, you didn't have enough energy to go and conquer the markets. So I think we took a bold decision long back, and we converted a lot of our warehouses and depot teams into distributors. And we gave them the inventory, we gave them some capital, and we said, go out and be an entrepreneur, and this is your territory, and do what you can. And I think it unleashed a lot of entrepreneurial energy, and a lot of our distributors became very good businessmen as opposed to being employees, and really went out and built really strong markets for us. I think that happened throughout Kerala, throughout Tamil Nadu, throughout Karnataka. And today we are easily number one in each of these markets still. And I think that was because of this, bold decision which my dad and uncles took 25 years ago. A lot of them will look back very fondly on the time and say, it wasn't such an easy decision to make. It took a lot of courage to do that. But I think proud that we've grown on the back of a lot of entrepreneurs throughout Duroflex. I think that's one of the good stories. I think some of the painful stories was that all of us in our generation, we grew up seeing our second generation go through quite a painful family split, largely due to differences in business. But of course, nothing ever is due to one thing. It's due to various background stuff. But I think we grew up seeing this painful family split, seeing our uncles and dads in court, which I think was a hard reality, or harsh reality, as Harsh Mariwala calls it. And I think we lost 10 good years, and we lost 10 years of unity within the family as well. So I think some good things are that the family is united again. All of us meet together as a family. We do family reunions. My uncle spearheads that. He's the head of the family, and he makes sure that we get together every few months and enjoy some fun and games and rummy and poker and whatnot. And in the business as well, I think 4 of us cousins have come together and said, let's work together. Let's work through our own differences, and we're stronger together. At the same time, let's be super mindful of what can go wrong and appreciate that it can go wrong again, and not let that happen. So very hard learnings, which, while I say we lost 10 years, I think we need to look at it as 10 years of learning, which we need to not repeat again. On our journey, 5 years ago, we did a really fun workshop with a friend, Ramesh Chud Thomas at Equator. It was called the Pygmalion Workshop. It was about kind of discovering what we inherited and what were our strengths and what would take us on the rest of the journey. It was a really fun workshop we did. I had no idea what to expect from it, actually. Sure. We just walked in saying, okay, fine, let's give it a shot. But I think we came out with some really deep stuff that, we had a serious commitment to being honest and integrity, and always trying to be much better. So innovation came out, and always being decent to each other. So fairness came up. And I think, that's become the bedrock of our organization today, and we talk about it everywhere, and it's on our walls. But it came through a process of looking at what happened in the last 50 years, including things which happened, which were wrong and which we managed to correct as well, right? So that's our DNA today. And we also realized that amongst our family group, while we were full of passion and energy and zest, and we did lots of things really well, there were many things which we didn't know how to do. And running the business professionally and scaling it was not something that we knew how to do. So one of the decisions we took was to bring in professionals. And I think we've had the privilege of having great professionals with us in the last 7 years who've complemented the family's promoter energy. And I think the mix of promoters and professionals is a very powerful combination, underestimated very often. A lot of people think family is family and professionals are professionals, but if you can get the best out of both, I think you've got a very good mix. So we got really good professionals from great organizations, from Wipro, from UB, from Cadbury's, from more recently from Udan, from Lifestyle, Amante. So I think everyone brought their own unique skill set to the table, and we learned to work together. Which is not easy. It's not easy today as well. There's always this perception that promoters think in a certain way and professionals think in a certain way, and which one is right? And we keep saying, at different points, different ones are right. There's no right answer to that question. But I would say, we are now moving towards being more professional and less promoter-led. And I think we still contribute a lot to vision and direction. But we would like more and more of the business to be professionally run, professionally managed, to really make this sustainable. There are so many more. There was one particular story which maybe is etched in my memory. This was very early days. This would be 2013. One conclusion we drew was that something which was holding us back was some old technology which we had in our manufacturing and in our factories, and it was resulting in far more wastage than we could afford. So it was a chicken and egg situation where we needed new technology, but we didn't have the cash flow to invest in it. And I think 4 times we made a decision to buy this state-of-the-art technology from Scandinavia. And 4 times we said yes, and 4 times later on we got a call from the board saying, I don't think we should do this actually. So it reached a point where, I was kind of almost really frustrated, and 4 of us from this generation we called the board again. We called my uncle and said, look, we have to do this. We're going to do this. And he said, do you have the cash flow to do it? And we said, no. And he said, then how are you going to do it? And we said, we don't know, but we're going to do it. And don't worry, we'll put our names on the personal guarantees for the financing of this. But otherwise, it's a chicken and egg situation. We won't have the cash flow in order to fund it. So we have to just make the cash flow happen. So I think when we spoke with this sort of conviction and we put our names down on the personal guarantees, and I hate personal guarantees and I hate borrowings, but we did it.
We had it.
And we also made it happen. We went into the markets and we made sure we used this expensive but great technology to the fullest extent, and we made it pay off. So I think, having conviction for what you want to do and putting your foot down and sticking with it even after the fourth attempt is pretty important. But it helped that it wasn't my decision alone. It helped that all four of us put our hands together and said, guys, we have to do this, and will you do this and this and this? And we split it up and we said, yeah, sure, we'll do it, and we need to make this happen. So, but there are so many. There are so many fabulous stories.
No, but this is beautiful. I mean, number one, you were not the Lone Ranger saying that, okay, I will get you to the promised land.
No.
You kind of formed a band of people, who were rallying together. And I love the fact that you went out there and fought the good fight. And, I think the only way they could see the gleam in your eyes and the strength in your voice and said, okay, if you considered all this and if you're convinced about it, let's go ahead. Because it's not an easy call, right? Otherwise, there was no reason why it would have come to the table 4 times and again back into the draw. I think that's wonderful.
But yeah, I think, you talked about the hero's journey. I think it's so rarely a hero's journey. I think there are always many heroes, and sometimes the other heroes don't get the credit. And I think the skill, an important skill, is in finding many heroes who keep the journey going. Because there are times when I don't have the energy and
sure.
Or I don't have the conviction often, and you need someone else to say, no, I think we should do this, and sell another story which you buy into. And I was saying this, this 10x, the next 10x journey was actually not my story. It's a story that someone else wrote, but now I buy into really, really fully. So, you need many heroes, and if you don't, then you end up being the villain, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a lovely line which I think Batman said. I'm sure many
if
people...
you stick around long enough,
you become the
villain, yeah.
So you have to find new heroes to take this.
I think the benefit of an insight from another person who is objectively a little removed from the situation can often lead to multiple dimensions in your own thought process. And the best way it hit home was when I sent my manuscript to my publisher, and she said, Jay, it's a fun read with a deep river running through. I said, I wrote 60,000 words, and you still found a better way to describe it, number one. And upon a little bit of reflection, I felt it was a little bit about the way I think of myself as well. And I was so happy that she landed on that aspect in the book, and that's what she took out. And it was an interesting discovery for me.
It was a fun journey with a deep river running through it. That's
I said, I love it so much, I've got to copy this everywhere. But amazing. The opening lines of Anna Karenina is, all happy families are alike. Unhappy families, however, are each unhappy in their own way. So the idea about family-owned businesses, and we were having a conversation, family dynamics. I mean, if there is a family which comes and says we are normal, that will turn out to be the most dysfunctional one. But that being said, when business gets into family and family gets into business, it adds a lot more layers to it. So there are, and you were talking about a loss of childhood. If you're talking about your father and your uncles in court and stuff like that, it's there's a lot of scarring that happens on the younger generation, which is kind of looking up to these people, saying that, hey, listen, you have to get us out of the woods. And stories are, you hear narratives, and you're not able to say which is what, because you're not at that age. And a lot of family-owned entrepreneurs who have existential growth pangs and their own versions of pain that's going on. And as somebody who's been in that sphere, what would you like to tell the younger generation which are inheriting a family legacy?
Yeah, I think firstly, I think it's important to have serious, honest conversations about family businesses. And I think something you talk about, they have inherent strengths and they have inherent weaknesses. Yes. And it's good to know that things can go wrong, and not to only celebrate the great successes, because there are many times when it's not so successful as well. So I think the first thing is just walking in saying, okay, I come from a business family. And so if you're talking about a new generation joining family, it's I come from a business family, but this is a privilege I have, but it's also something I need to recognize as a privilege and not take it for granted, and not think that, I'm special because I'm from this family, or I'm special because I inherited this. So I think the sense of entitlement, it's very important to not have, and to realize that actually you're a custodian for the business, and that you're a custodian for the next generations and for everybody else with whom you work. So staying grounded in realizing that you're not special just because you were born into this family, I think is really important. And I think credit to my parents, and I think even my uncles, that this grounding was always there, saying you're not special. Go and study, work hard, learn your stuff, come back, start at the ground level and work your way up. And I think that is important. I think it's also important that within a family, if families are to work together, to realize each other's strengths and weaknesses, and to be a honest mirror, and to be willing to take the feedback as well. So I think, if I look at the four of us cousins, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So, I would say I'm probably fairly strong on vision and strategic direction, pretty weak on execution. Two of my cousins are strong on execution. One who started Sleepyhead, one who makes sure that our factories and our supply chain is running really well. And the youngest cousin, I'm a hard taskmaster. I'm not so accepting, whereas he is far more accepting and is able to take people along the journey. So between the four of us, we have a interesting mix of vision, strategy, execution, empathy.
Amazing.
Able to recognize it enough to allow each other the space to develop that. So I think it came over time. It didn't happen on day one. But we have good advisors. I think you need good advisors. So we have a great family business moderator who meets with us once a quarter, and we talk about this stuff, and sometimes it's really raw, and often you do leave those discussions feeling worse on the day, but better the next day, because you've unloaded everything you had to unload, and you've accepted everything which somebody has said. But I think we reached a good place where we can share it quite openly, and it works. And I think the other great thing is we have a bunch of really good professionals who also let us see what's working and what's not working, and they're also good mirrors to us. So, we've got great people in our people function, and who lead some of these businesses, who are quite willing to tell us, look, this is not great.
Okay. All right.
This is not great. Calm down. Otherwise, you're going to blow this thing up. And So I think you need to get the best out of each other. And I think but I think it's also important for family to behave professionally. And that not say family is different.
Gotcha.
So when we're at the table, we hold ourselves accountable as we would a professional. And I think that's important.
Amazing.
And we try, not always successful, but try to work with professionals as if they were as close as family.
Gotcha. And vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. So it's very tempting for the younger generation to come in and say, hey, listen, let me change this. I've been studying this for a very long time. And unfortunately, what also happens is there is a temptation to throw the baby out along with the bathwater, which is something that you said beautifully, right? This moving between both the sides. There are sometimes professionals they've got like a valid thing, and sometimes promoters, we have an insight.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we've been doing this for some time now. So what is your sense of that?
Yeah, I think no disruption too quickly is what I would say. And I remember, 10 years ago when I came back and joined the business, one of the things my uncle said when he welcomed me back in was, hey, you've spent 10 years in England and in America and whatnot, and just take it easy. This is India, and it'll take you some time to understand our business and our industry and India. So don't bring too many fancy ideas too fast. And to a point where we had a tacit agreement that for 1 year, no change. And I think that was a good thing. It was a good thing to do. He said, just allow everything to happen,
absorb.
and then do what you have to do. And interestingly, at the end of that 1 year, I had actually not made any changes, I have to say. I did follow his advice. But at the end of the 1 year, he said, okay, now I think you're ready. And he said, you can be the managing director. And I said, yeah, sure, in 3 years. And he said, no, start tomorrow, because I think you're ready. But that was a hard one. And I think the thinking did change overnight after that. But it was important to not change too much, too fast. And having digested what was good and what was not so good, to then start. But change is important. So it is, whenever there are leadership changes and new people come to the table, of course they're brimming with ideas. And if you don't allow those ideas to fruit and flower, then it's not worth having them at the table. So you do need disruption, but you need disruption which you can absorb and keep working through. So I would just say to the next generation, don't change things too fast. Accept that there are some great stuff, which is why the business has survived how many ever years it has survived, and keep the values intact, keep the good stuff, and throw out the bad
Discard
stuff.
the rest. Yep.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. What is your personal leadership comportment like? What are the fundamental 101 principles that you go back to for yourself? A very bespoke, customized set of metaphors, stroke principles that you think define your leadership style.
Too hard, yeah.
Give it a go.
I think every year I would say my leadership fundamentals have probably changed a little bit.
Sure.
I'll tell you what's important to me, not what I've necessarily managed to follow, because
Works.
There are many times when they slip. I would say, being fair is really important. And I think being fair and expecting fairness. I think both are important.
Wow.
So treat others the way you would like to be treated and hold them up to the same standard. Both are important. If you're just too fair, sometimes you get taken advantage of. So being really fair, I think, is important. And I think being true to what you believe and sticking with it. And every time you move away from that to bring it back consciously and visibly is important. So this sense of, this is what I'm really trying to do, and I'll stick to it. And sure, we may move off course and someone may convince us to do something else, but by and large, is it in the right direction? I would say having vision is really important. I think we all love to look at a brighter future, and we want to see something 5 years down the line which is exciting and beautiful. So I think being able to see that beautiful future and to paint a good picture or tell a good story around that and to rally people around that, I think that's really, really important. We don't want to only deal with today's problems, and today has plenty of problems, but I think being able to paint a great picture of the future and to excite people to go along that journey, I think is very, very important for leaders. And also having good executors along the way. So taking people along with you and bringing people along who have skills which you don't have. I think those are pretty important. I think one mistake which we sometimes make, which I won't call it a mistake. I think we've grown through kind of breaking up into smaller teams and focus areas and driving fast in a certain direction. So D2C was a different business.
Sure.
B2B was a different business, and B2C was a different business, and separate leadership, separate goals, and run fast. So freedom and responsibility,
sure.
Which Reed Hastings talks a lot about. Of late, we're noticing that now is starting to become a little counterproductive, where we want more collaboration and we want more synergy. So what worked for us for the last 5 years was freedom and responsibility. Now we're saying,
lovely
guys, let's come back and let's learn to collaborate and synergize deeply, because we need to get the best of each other and the best of what we have. And we have, strong back ends, and the back end has to be common and the front end has to start to become common. And finally, we are one company. So we are different units, but one company, and same but different stuff. So I think collaboration and getting synergy, or getting everybody to think synergy, is very important for leaders at the right point in time.
Miki, one of the things, the reason I started this podcast is also to ensure that leaders learn from leaders of other industries. Now, you could argue that leadership, the fundamental principles are the same, and it depends on, and then you pick it up and learn. But I also noticed that there are some industries and some businesses which has a nuance. The ecosystem has a nuance which gets picked up by that leader. It would behoove well for leaders of other industries to say, oh, wow, this is something that I could pick from this particular leader, from a consumer organization like yours. Anything that you would like to say, hey, listen, this happens a lot and we've built this muscle. I think it could help you guys as well.
Yeah, I think one thing which is fairly unique to our industry is that we're a pretty unorganized industry. So even today, 60% of the business comes from the unorganized segment. And the unorganized segment behaves in a way which is very different from people who are used to organization. So one challenge we've always had is when we recruit high talent from multinational people who've primarily worked at multinational corporations or versions of that, struggle to do well in our company and in our industry. And it's just that there is far more chaos in our industry.
Give me an example, a day in the life of types.
Yeah, I think, for example, MNCs are used to an innovation process or a new product development process, which is 18 months or 3 years, sometimes in some cases. In our industry, you need to try and do that crunch that into 90 days.
Wow.
Just because and when I say innovation, it's not only about releasing of new products,
Sure,
but
sure.
it's new products at different price points, because the industry is evolving so fast, and the unorganized sector behaves in a way which can be very unpredictable because they have no rules, and that's their strength.
Mm-hmm.
So very often they don't pay GST, they don't pay minimum wage, they don't pay toll, whatever. They do a lot of stuff,
Sure.
which and so on the one hand you're trying to respond, on the other hand you're trying to not be too reactive, and it's a very challenging balance. So I think just being able to crunch your product innovation and releases into a shorter time frame, and yet have the robustness of what you need to do to make sure that this product succeeds. So in some ways, even though we are a little bit more of a traditional bricks and mortar, even though we're D2C, a lot of learnings from the tech space, where there's a need to constantly innovate and experiment and re-release on a daily, weekly, monthly cycle. So in an unorganized industry like ours, we actually need to think and innovate as fast as technology does. So I think that's probably one. And if you're hiring professionals who also enjoy a little bit of chaos and confusion, and have fun in the chaos and confusion, as opposed to letting it get to them, because chaos is a lot of fun also, if you can ride with that wave. So that's probably one. I think the other one is that you do need to think differently if you want to win. And it goes back to something we talked about earlier. We learned from the likes of Asian Paints and Boat.
Yeah, refreshing to hear you say that.
Yeah, because absolutely. You have to think a little differently. You have to create brand aspiration. You have to create a product which behaves differently. You have to create an experience in retail which is different. You have to win loyalty of your general trade and channel, which is different, because otherwise, if you play to everyone's expectations and rules and don't create aspiration and purpose, you actually can't win. So I think that's unique to our industry, but many industries have walked that path before us, and we learn from them. So I guess if anybody's trying to organize the unorganized industry, don't go about it with conventional rules or conventional people. You need some firebrand people. You need some unconventional thinkers. Those unconventional thinkers also mess up your plans a little bit because they think so differently. But you need to bring that differentiated thought and be able to execute it also. Yeah.
Amazing. What categories would you compare your categories with? I mean, we're talking about 60% unbranded, or, any other categories come to mind?
There are quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, we believe we're in the health space.
I got it.
So following the path that health brands have taken to create different behaviors and habits and lifestyles. That's one side of the equation. I think the other side is also products where people tend to use a lot but forget quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore,
and with the presence of a large unbranded segment.
Yeah, so I think in the past, the tire industry used to be similar.
Got it. Brilliant.
If I asked you today, what tires do you drive on?
I do know, but I do. But I get a sense of where you're coming from.
Yeah, somebody else makes the decision for you. You delegate. It's very important. Safety is very important. But I don't know what tires I drive.
But would that industry also be much to the tune of a similar unbranded?
No longer. I think at one time it was.
It was. Okay, interesting.
Tires could be one. I think paint for sure. It was a very commoditized product, not so exciting. But now it's like fun to paint your house and put some pink on a wall and some green on your door. And so I think making a boring product and a experience which has a lot of frictions is very painful to paint your house.
I'm still waiting for your levitating mattress. I'm sure you must have something somewhere hidden away.
But you know what pains me is that, look, everybody spends 8 hours a day, if not more. In India, we also have meals and watch TV, and it's a social play.
Yeah.
So this product is actually heart and center of everything that you do. So getting people to realize that, invest in a good mattress, invest in sleep. It's painful, but it's important. So
especially you were talking about eating on the mattress and stuff like that. A Punjabi friend of mine was saying, "Yeah, we have newspapers at home. We get newspapers at home. Kyun? This is why we get newspapers, to spread it on the mattress."
One of the reasons, one of the reasons we get some mattresses returned was because people say, your cloth was a little defective. And when we started looking, it was actually that people were ironing on their mattress.
Geez, no wonder.
Yeah, and you also have to understand that in many cities, the houses are a little smaller and everybody doesn't have the space for an ironing.
Did that lead you to an insight on product design?
I should say yes, but no.
Okay, sure.
One of the reasons...
It was made for a sexy story, that's why.
Yeah, I wish. No, we just started sticking a label on the mattress saying, do not iron on this. and telling our frontline teams, don't take mattresses back if somebody has ironed on it, because...
Oh God. Okay. All right. Interesting.
But food for thought, let me see.
So there is one, a lot of CXOs that reach out to me are also in the process of heading companies globally. As in they've been heading this region, then Southeast Asia, and then they're looking at the global stage. And so there is a particular line of thinking, and we're seeing a lot more Indians, leading global companies around the world, right? And you worked in the US and the UK as well. What are some of the things that we can do better to emerge as world champions? There are some things that we are really good at.
Yeah,
spend some time on that as well.
This is a really, really good question. I think it's deep. I think there's some things which we as Indians are really good at, and I think it's our superpower actually. We were born and grew up in chaos.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's why we're so jugaad. We just have to find a way to deal with so much stuff which is not going well. And I think that's also the way we work. We're not so process oriented and so systems oriented. Also because the external world doesn't allow us to be extremely systems oriented. But when we go into an environment where, like the West, where things are quite organized and stuff like that, we tend to do really well. And that's why Microsoft and Google and all those fabulous companies
are contrarian in a way, from chaotic kind of an environment to process-driven environment. I would have thought that we would be a little out of step, but that's not the case. We have done really well.
So I think we have very neuroplastic minds. So our minds adapt very well, very fast. We can learn things quickly on the go. Because of we were born and are used to doing that. So I think when you go to the West, where the internal world, your companies and your rules and your governments are fairly easy to predict.
Sure.
Then you train your neuroplasticity.
So our ability to shapeshift into a newer environment is better than most.
Yeah, so you train that on your delivering value for a customer or for building the best technology, and you train it on your competition and things like that. So you can train the same flexibility onto an external enemy as opposed to your internal environment. So I think we should remember that Indians, we have this superpower. But can we give ourselves a little more organization to unleash this? Because if the whole time you're just thinking jugaad, then you got a problem. Yeah. But if you can train your flexible mind to building better products, better services, innovation, and save all the licensing and liaising and all that painful stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For someone else to do, then I think Indians can be really, really good leaders. I think we're proving it on the big stage.
What behavior have you changed for the better in the last year or 6 months, whichever?
I could tell you a behavior I've changed for the worse rather than better.
Let's go.
I think the entrepreneurial journey it's quite stressful. There's a lot of pressure. You can carry a lot of stress back home. So probably quite guilty of carrying a lot of stress back home. So trying to mend it once again, but it's definitely something which you can't say this is a battle permanently won. I think it's a constant battle where
it is.
You reach the next level and then you get a next level of pressure or stress, which is all self-inflicted.
100%.
But making sure you don't carry it home is really critical, and not so proud of what I've reached right now. And I think time for a pause over there and say, no, just take it easy.
Interesting. That's the enemy who shall be named as of now.
Yeah, take it easy. It's okay to indulge yourself with a little bit of rest and relaxation and chill, and it's fine.
Absolutely.
Even if it's Netflix and chill, it's fine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
The other thing, maybe this is good, it's very recent. Like I was saying, I think bring back the mindset that, look, it's a tough journey. We all have to collaborate more than we have to work individually, and avoid complaining or avoid criticizing. Try to always border on the side of being constructive in whatever you're trying to do. So it's a tough one. When things are tough, it's easy to slip into being critical as opposed to being constructive. And maybe I'd slipped quite a bit on that, and trying very hard to bring it back to course. But the reality is, look, when you're in a kind of tough zone or in a war zone, it's very easy to be just, man, this is what we have to do. Do it now and get it done. No questions asked. It's easy to slip back into that. And so I think these are times when you need to be both mindful that you're sometimes in war, but you're actually in peace, and try to bring the best of both.
It's amazing. I think it's the constant tussle between, do I stop to smell the roses or do I smell the coffee?
So someone told me this. He said, Miki, you have to learn to be incredibly proud and grateful for what you've achieved today, and then looking forward, be very dissatisfied with whether you're ready for what you require to be tomorrow. Right? So, but don't lose track of either, because I can switch very easily in thinking, but we're not ready for tomorrow. But giving enough credit for you,
the journey that you've traversed till now,
yourself and your team and all the stuff which brought you here, be genuinely grateful and proud and celebrate it in the truest sense, and then look forward and say, but hey, are we ready? If not, what do we need to do? So I can switch into the second part much more easily, and that's a problem. Anyone who works with me says, hey, come on, just...
I think you said something really nice about gratitude, and I think that's important. Yeah. And I'd like to extend my gratitude to you for having shown up in this conversation. Not just shown up, but shown up in the way great showing up looks like. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and allowing me to show up in my truest sense. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Thanks.